A young hotshot law enforcement officer with unbelievably good looks must learn an extreme sport in order to befriend a group of adrenaline junkies who were suspected of a group of robberies. James Cameron and Kathryn Bigelow had a really good July in 1991. On July 3rd, Terminator 2 came out and ended up being the highest grossing movie of the year. Then on July 12th, Point Break came out, directed by Kathryn Bigelow and produced by James Cameron. Now while Point Break never reached the heights of Terminator 2, it has become a classic over the past 30 years and inspired, maybe even plagiaristically so, one of the most popular action franchises of all time. The similarities between Fast and the Furious and Point Break are so close I'm kind of surprised there hasn't been a lawsuit. Let's look at the evidence. Both feature a young, hotshot, extremely good-looking law enforcement officer. The officer must infiltrate a gang of adrenaline junkies accused of a string of robberies. Both officers fall in love with a waitress who is tangentially related to the gang. Both officers love shrimp. Both officers order tuna sandwiches. Both feature cameos from musicians who were hot at the time the movie came out, Ja Rule and Anthony Kiedis. And between Fast and the Furious and Point Break, they drink a lot of Corona. And there are also a lot of other similarities, but they reveal plot points later in the movie, so I'm not going to spoil them here, but trust me, there are more similarities than the ones I've mentioned above. Even with all of the similarities, Point Break and Fast and the Furious each stand on their own, and I'm glad that both exist. They are heavily steeped in the culture of the time, which make them just charming time capsules. And while the Fast and the Furious benefits from a decade of movie-making advances, mostly in sound design, both films do a great job of letting the audience feel the adrenaline of the action scenes. Patrick Swayze was so charismatic in Point Break, and really in every movie he was in around that time. He has this unpredictable energy about him that keeps the audience on edge. And Keanu Reeves, on the other hand, hasn't quite found his action movie acting chops yet. He is sailing through Point Break solely on his looks. His line delivery in Point Break is literally laughably bad, but so bad that it comes across as cute and charming. Making Reeves' partner, Gary Busey, was a great decision. Busey has the same unpredictable energy as Patrick Swayze, but in an older, more crazy kind of way. He delivers so many great one-liners throughout this film. And then there's John C. McGinley, who plays this over-the-top, always yelling FBI director years before he played the over-the-top, always yelling doctor in Scrubs. He added a lot of comedy to the film, and I'm not 100% sure if it was supposed to be funny, but it always made me laugh. And finally, there's Lori Petty as the waitress slash surf instructor slash love interest. This was a year before her star-making role in A League of Their Own. Now, if you liked her as Kit in A League of Their Own, you're going to love her in Point Break. Now, I've always questioned why Keanu Reeves' character was named Johnny Utah, which sounds like a name made up by a 13-year-old. His character was a famous football player for Ohio State that takes his team to the championship. He is well known enough for a group of guys to recognize him playing football clear across the country on the beach at night. Now, when Johnny Utah goes undercover, you aren't going to guess what name he uses. Johnny Utah. This famous athlete turned FBI agent goes undercover and uses his real name. Genius. Point Break is definitely style over substance, but I just can't help but love it. It has a great cast, it takes place in a great setting, and features some pretty impressive action scene shots, especially for 1991. Plus, there's a scene where a pit bull is thrown at someone, and I promise you have never seen anything like that in a movie before. Desk surfing, eating a meatball sandwich, falling in love with a waitress, holding hands while skydiving, robbing a bank dressed as a president, throwing a dog.